everything new. Yeah, I can't believe it's the end of the year. I don't know about anybody else, but this year seems to have just gone past so quickly. I think that happens more as we have more years behind us. And I was trying to decide, am I celebrating the end of the past year or the beginning of a new year? What about you? Are you celebrating the end of the past year or the beginning of the new year? See, at the end of a gymnastics performance, after all the spins and twirls, a gymnast must land upright on their feet. And so at the end of this year, having explored our theme of a grand rising, it's time for us to land on our feet, grounded in timeless principles. And then think about, how do we take all that we've learned this year and rise into the next year? At this time of year, there's a lot of year in review columns. And one of them that I was reading was from the New York Times, and it was the best advice received. And I thought some of these are pretty valuable. Maybe I want to hang on to this. I'll read a couple for you. Here's one from Ava Schaefer of Cincinnati. Do something today your tomorrow self will thank you for. And one of my favorites from Kimberly Anderson of Old Bridge, New Jersey. If you're worried about something that doesn't really matter, and you know eventually you'll say, who cares? Why not just go right to who cares? And another word of wisdom, instead of trying harder, try softer. Here's one of my other favorite too. The only time you should look in someone else's bowl is to see if they have enough. If you're going to procrastinate, do something you enjoy. That's by Alicia Allen of Abu Dhabi. And here's the very last one. If you have a plant with mealy bugs, spray it with rubbing alcohol. That's from Jolie Homburg from Minneapolis. So there's lots of advice we received this year, right? And as we look back on this year that we just completed, let's just be grateful for it, grateful for that it's done, and grateful for everything we experienced, the things that we labeled as good, the things we labeled as, I don't want to do that again, the things we labeled as, who cares? And what would it feel like to just be grateful for the experience, whatever it was, all the blessings, all the learning? For example, I am grateful for the work we did in Vallejo, even though it was a result of losing a family member. Now, I'm grateful that we were physically able to do it, grateful for the abundance we found and being able to give so much of it away to places where it could do most good. I think about all those ballet shoes and tap shoes going to the organization that puts on shows for children. It's like, oh, they're going to have supplies, which they didn't have before. I'm grateful for spending the summer in the cool Bay Area and grateful for new friends that helped us along the way and grateful that it brought us closer together. So, what about you? So, let's just take a breath and just consider the past year. And I'm sure you can find something that you're grateful for. And just think about, what is maybe one thing that I'm grateful for, or another thing that I'm grateful for. And if you feel like you want to share, which we want to hear, then write something in the chat about an experience that you're grateful for in the last year. No matter what the troubles we face, we have infinite opportunities to see them rightly and to experience a healing. And it's only as we have reconciled and befriended every aspect of the past year that we're in good stead to accept the blessings of what's coming. So are you ready for the next thing to do? As the song said, it's going to be everything new. And so repeat this silently to yourself. Bring it on. everything new, everything different, everything true. See, we say in Science of Mind that we are open at the top. And it's one thing to say that we're open, and it's another thing to expand into that openness. There's an old Zen saying, when you get to the top of the mountain, keep climbing. The principles that mountain stays the same. It's our relation to it that changes, and our relation to the principles expands as our minds, our hearts, and our wisdom expand. And it's very comfortable. I love to stay with the old, the tried, the true. I am really good about that. But what I've come to realize is growth doesn't happen in old comfort. So let's contemplate four of Ernest Holmes' often spoken ideas. First, I know you've heard this: principle is not bound by precedent. Second, evolution is always forward. Third, we're to be open at the top, and we are to be for something and against nothing. Now, we've heard those a lot. And how often do we think about it and actually live that? See, these ideas open a vista for us, and it points us in the direction of consciousness. Consciousness moving forward. So we are individualized expressions of infinite beingness, as Rainbow said in her invocation, and therefore we are inherently unlimited. Any restrictions, any constrictions, any blockages to the divine flow are self-created out of what? Fear? A belief in separateness? Ernest Holmes, in his Sermon by the Sea, tells us this. He says, find me one person who can get their own littleness out of the way, and they shall reveal to me the immeasurable magnitude of the universe in which I live. Unlimited. There's a song, which I know you know, and we're going to sing it after the talk today. And the chorus is, I release and I let go. I know you know the words. And what we focus on at this time of the year often is the I release. I release and I let go. We focus on that part. But my question for you and for the next year for me is, what would happen if I focused on the next line? I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. What would it be like if I focused on that line? So I've done all the releasing and letting go that I even want to do. Let the Spirit run my life. This is totally different. So as we breathe deeply and just become aware of that eternal flow of spirit through us, and just think about times in your life when you've been in the flow, when you felt that flow of spirit. And then when we do that, we expand our ability to more fully experience and express that spirit. We find new ways to express the eternal principle that guides the universe. We find new ways to be spirit in form. And it's important to recognize that while we are open at the top, we're also grounded in a foundation of spiritual principles. Continuing with Ernest Holmes in the Sermon by the Sea, he says, there is a power transcendent beyond our needs, our little wants. Demonstrating a dime is good if one needs it, or healing oneself of a pain is certainly good if one has it. But beyond that, the real feast at the tabernacle of the Almighty, in the temple of the living God, in the banquet hall of heaven, there is something beyond anything that you and I have touched. Wow, there is something beyond anything that you and I have touched. What about expanding into that consciousness? We all remember when we began the journey of awakening, we learned and applied the principles to our lives using practices and methods that we learned: scientific prayer, we learned meditation, we learned affirmation, we learn these things, and then we begin to see our lives change, to shift, and grow into lives of greater peace, prosperity, love. And as we place spirit at the center of our consciousness, it shows up in ever expanding ways at our circumference. The circumference is the circumstances of our lives. And we begin to understand how this works. We move from a consciousness of life happening to me, to life happening by me, and then to life happening through me. And we develop more skills at working in alignment with life and spirit as it shows up all over our lives. And yet there can be a tendency as our lives work better to sit back and say, well, this is enough. This is good for me. And I'm happy right where I am. And I so love to do that. But Ernest Holmes reminds us evolution is always forward. So the divine urge of life itself is always pushes us towards greater and greater expression. There is no there to arrive at, only stepping stones along the pavement of the time that we're here on earth on our journey. So as we create lives which are in greater alignment with life as spirit, we have not only the opportunity, but the responsibility to expand that life beyond our own individual natures, beyond our small world. Albert Einstein is quoted in Creating a World That Works for All by Sharif Abdullah. He says this: a human being is part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. They experience themselves, their thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of delusion of their consciousness. This delusion is a prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. So our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the world of nature in its beauty. Wow, that's a big charge for us. Something that we are charged with doing. See, once we get our own lives in order, then we have to think about the rest of the world, the compassion that we have for everyone. And I get this picture of when from space we first saw the picture of the blue marble. It's like when you see that, there's no borders, there's no us and them, there's only this big blue planet. So since all forms of life are spirit in form, and all forms are contained in this unity, then to truly expand our experience and expression, we must support the experience and expression of all forms of life. Thus, as we become more grounded in spiritual principle and practice, we are called to share with others. I was thinking about this. I was thinking about the song, I release and I let go. I let the spirit run my life. And the next line, and my arms are open wide. Wow, okay, now I have to do something outside of myself. So we're called to reach beyond our own comfort zones and help those who maybe haven't learned these principles, or maybe are doing things in a way that is not supportive of them or the community. Our outreach still has to be grounded in principle and grounded in supporting the expansion of spiritual awareness and expression. So maybe just giving a handout doesn't help. We must give a hand up in consciousness to support our fellow beings on the planet. The saying, no one is free until all are free, points us to the interconnectedness of all forms of life. So speaking of the interconnectedness, there was once a handyman who had a dog named Mace. Now, Mace was a great dog, except he had one really weird habit. He liked to eat grass, not just a little bit. He was eating in quantities that would make a lawnmower blush, and nothing could cure him of it. And one day, the handyman. Well, he lost his wrench in the tall grass, and he looked and looked and looked, but he could not find it. And it was dark. And so he gave up and he decided, I'll look in the morning when it's light. And when he awoke, he went outside and he saw that his dog had eaten all the grass in the area, right around where he'd been working, fortunately. And now the wrench was in plain sight, glinting in the sun. And so he went out to get his wrench and he called the dog over to him and he said, "A grazing mace, how sweet the hound that saved a wrench for me." Now we must be willing not to be aware that we're open at the top, but to expand into that openness, that interconnectedness. And what keeps us from expanding? Well, I don't know about you, but sometimes it's fear that I'll lose what I have. What if I do something different and risk everything and then I lose it? Um, but the other one is kind of more important. It's like not knowing how. So if I fear that I'm losing something, well, that's based in lack consciousness, and we know if we believe in lack, that's what we get more of. If we believe in an infinite supply of good, then good is ever expansive. So we expand our spirit and it expands our good. And we can't exhaust or lose that infinite supply. And as we work in alignment with the flow of evolution, the flow of spirit, we're not overwhelmed or overburdened by expanding our experience of a more encompassing good. It's only when we constrict from fear that things get difficult. John Ginwright in the Four Pivots says, if we look deep within for a moment and ask how we can change our outlook, we will at least be on the right track. I've heard someone say that if we want something we've never seen, we have to do something we've never tried. Ooh. If we want something we've never seen, we have to do something we've never tried. And so when I don't know how, I turn to spirit. You know, when we do treatment, we don't say how, it's the what that is ours. And the how is up to spirit, the how is up to the universe. And that reminds us that the how, the law knows how. And it's simply ours to expand our vision of what good looks like. I've heard it said that everything is created twice, once in mind, once in thought, and once in the physical world. So we have to have that vision, we have to have that thought before we can see it manifest around us. So we have no idea how. And we can't let that stop us. We can't let the not knowing how stop us from having the vision, because we know that the infinite intelligence does know how. So we have to be willing to tap into that mind. So what if it's never happened before? This is what we know. Principle is not bound by precedent. So I heard a story about a young man. He used to go hiking in the Cascade Mountains in Washington. And there was a particular trail that led to an alpine lake, which was supposed to be just beautiful. The trail was 7 miles long, began fairly easily, but soon it changed into a steep uphill pitch for 3 miles across rock and boulder. And about 4 miles up, there was a lovely spot. And so this young man used to stop for lunch there, enjoy the view of the waterfall, read, maybe write. And after a while, he would say, well, this is far enough. I've seen this beautiful waterfall. I've seen the nature around me, and I can go back now. Eventually, though, he decided that he really did want to see the Alpine Lake. So after several times of stopping and turning around, one day he committed to going further. And to his surprise, he found that the trail became easier and more level. And soon he was able to see the lake up ahead and finally stand in that place he'd always wanted to be. But instead, he settled for having a nice lunch and abandoning his goal. Eventually, he'd gone beyond his discomfort and fear that the whole trail would be a struggle and arrived at a place he'd only read about. So as I think about this story, I think, where in my life have I gone a ways, had maybe an uphill struggle for a little while and said, oh, okay, I can rest here. This is good. I'm good. I've seen, this waterfall is good enough. I don't care if I get to see the lake at the next level. So where in my life have I done that? And where am I ready to maybe try the next piece? So where in your life are you being called to expand beyond your current limitations or comfort zone? Maybe have you caught Spirit's vision for this calling? Let it guide you. What is my spiritual evolution? What's calling me forward in life? And how am I responding? Am I responding in fear and lack and limitation? And what can I do to shake up my complacency? At this point in my life, I'm pretty much more than halfway. What do I want to do now? How can I become more willing to make life that great adventure? See, I release and I let go. First line. Second, I let the Spirit run my life. Third, my arms are open wide. The next line, I'm only here for God. So, what would it be like if I were only here for God? And I think the answer is in the next part of the verse. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith, I see the light. Yes, I am free in the Spirit. The flow of the divine life is always expanding, and so we can't help but to expand with it. We have more experiences in our life. But when we get scared or fail to see the path, we have to step beyond that. We don't want to step out of the flow and get lost, but the flow is always available for us to step into. And it's okay to rest. But getting stuck, that's where we get limited. And then we get caught up in fighting the circumstances around us. The gift we have is our understanding of the consciousness. Consciousness is cause. The gift is the understanding that everything begins in mind. And the universe is a place of love, light, power, peace, beauty, joy, abundantly expressing. Our gift is that we understand that changing, expanding our consciousness, changes our circumstances. So let's share that gift. Let's find ways to let reality align with that greater reality. So step up, expand the vision. So let us begin this year gathering courage, love, mindfulness, and a sense of purpose. And we gather as people of all ages, different abilities, different backgrounds, different perspectives, but we share a common promise, a direction for our shared journey, and a commitment to encourage and challenge one another to spiritual growth. Now, this path will ask much from us. So let us move forward with love. Let us move forward with appreciation for one another. Let us move forward knowing we are not alone. So, whoever we are, whatever our gifts, let's join together on this journey of expanding consciousness. And let's take that thought into our prayer today. And so just breathe with me, letting go, first letting go, releasing, letting go. And inhaling that divine life that is our life, that is each person's life. There is only one life. That life is God life. That life is everywhere. And that life is my life now. One life, everywhere present, in every person, every place, every situation, all of the time. And so we come into that knowing of oneness and speaking from that oneness, speaking from that greater perspective, speaking from the voice of spirit in action. I now affirm and declare that this place that we live on, this earth, is a place of peace, a place of plenty, a place of love. And so in this peace and plenty and love, oh, there is so much wonderful connection that we can make. We connect with the earth. We connect with each other. We connect with the four-leggeds and the six-leggeds and the eight-leggeds. We connect with those with fins. We connect with all of the God blobs. One power, one presence, eternal. And in this connection, we know love. We know relationships that work in perfect right ways, know wholeness and the wonder of life itself. In this, we creatively express ourselves, that divine within us, but picturing as beauty, as art, as cake, that creative expression of life itself that feeds us and allows us to feed others. And so with love and creative expression also comes that health, that quality of life itself that is health and healthy, ease of movement, beautiful sight, wondrous hearing of the harmony of life itself, perfect health, perfect breath. And so with love, creative expression, and perfect health, then we know truly this is a world of abundance, with everyone having exactly what it is that they need. But there is more than enough to share, and that as we give thanks for our bounty, we share from the heart. We share with each other. We share feelings. We share food. We share love. There is more than enough. Let us be that arms of spirit, the hands, the feet, the voice of spirit on earth. And so as we release this word into the law has received it, has received our vision, and goes about manifesting the what in a way that we don't even know, because the law is responsible for the how. So we let that be. We rest in the knowing that it is done in perfect right timing, in perfect right ways. And so as we rest, we affirm this by saying together, and so it is.